things always happen to me? One bad thing after another. It never matters what I do. It's always bad. Just one thing piles onto another over and over. Why me? Why me? Well, why not? Am I someone who's any different than anybody else? Every single person in this room has faced challenges at some point or another. It's how we deal with those challenges that makes the difference. It's not the challenges themselves. If you look back on your whole life, you're going to see a whole pile of things that have been bad and things that have been good. And it's your choice in life to decide which ones you're going to focus on. I've spent my entire life, like many of you, facing challenge after challenge. And we all know that we each have our own set of circumstances and our unique challenges. And none of us is immune to that. And when you come down to it, all that anyone's guaranteed is this 1 second on this one day where we are right now. So why not make it good? Why not focus on the positive and find humor in any situation that life happens to throw at you? I can guarantee you that your life will go better. Life is for living. Enjoy it. Learn to laugh instead of cry. That's easy, huh? Heck no. For some people, they're brought into this world and they have this upbeat, positive attitude, and it's just so easy to go about, oh, Victor. And for the rest of us, we kind of have to learn to be positive because we have a lot of negative influences around us. You have the news media, you have other members of your family, you have things that are going on. So you have to learn how to be positive. Hard as it is to believe, the very best things in life often come out of the worst things. If you look back in your life at the worst things that happened, and then look at where you are today, many times you can trace it back to that thing that happened in your past that actually brought you to where you are in a good place. So the bad things are not that bad. Throughout life, I've learned to laugh at almost everything, even some things that other people don't consider funny. And I've learned to not take myself too seriously. I've learned that that's a big problem for a lot of people, and it was a big problem for me early in life. And even on bad days when I'm hiding under my bed, I do come out eventually, and usually I start laughing. So you're probably thinking, well, she hasn't really gone through anything in her life. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's probably had it good all these years. Well, I'm going to share just a really short, brief introduction to some of the challenges I faced, just so you know I know what I'm talking about. I grew up in a highly dysfunctional family with a mother who was severely mentally ill. She had fallen down a flight of concrete steps, had a severe brain injury. Her injury resulted in what mimics schizophrenia. That's what my sisters and I grew up with. My dad worked out of town most of my childhood, and so my sisters and I were on our own with our mom. And you would think that you really wouldn't find any way to laugh at that kind of situation. I mean, my sisters and I were abused in every way you can imagine, but we still found ways to laugh. We would visit Mom in the mental hospital and come home and make our own little private jokes about things that most people wouldn't think are too funny, but it helped us get through it. When I turned 18, I actually met and married a man who I thought was wonderful. It turned out he was emotionally abusive, he was a gambler, and he was very controlling. We had 2 children, 2 beautiful children, and I had just made a vow to myself that my children were not going to be raised like I was. My children are going to know they're loved. My children are going to know how wonderful they are. Well, later in life, I learned that both parents have to take that vow in order for that to work. I left after 23 years of marriage, after it got to be too much. So we went through divorce, lost our house, filed bankruptcy. I've been involved in 3 car accidents where the car was completely totaled. I had a chiropractor tell me that, oh, think about it this way, you're so lucky. When I went to see him after one of my car accidents, he said, only 1 in every 64,000 people are ever involved in an accident where a car's totaled. And I said, well, I blow that clear out of the water because I've been involved in 3. So get rid of your statistics. It doesn't work for me. I've had a total of 5 spine surgeries. I have had metal implanted in my lower back, and I have an artificial disc in my neck. I've had 12 major surgeries over life and dozens of other smaller procedures. Twice, I nearly died during surgery. I've had heart problems that went undiagnosed for 8 years, and during that time I had 2 mini strokes. I was taken to the hospital numerous times by ambulance. Once my heart nearly stopped, and I've had the paddles used to restart my heart twice. Throughout my life, I can count at least 6 instances where I should have died. On 3 of those occasions, my family was told it was a miracle I survived. I think there's a reason I'm still here. My maternal grandparents were more like parents to me than my parents ever were. And when my grandmother died, I'm the one who found her. I did CPR till the ambulance arrived, and she didn't make it. I felt so much guilt over that I almost didn't go to the funeral. Shortly after that, I found out that she had died of kidney failure, and that the CPR wouldn't have mattered no matter what I did. But for that short period of time, I thought I had killed her. After I was divorced, I was stalked by a man I met. I was absolutely paranoid to go home, to open my windows, to drive in my car. He faced criminal charges. I dealt with 3 years of what I was told was chronic pain in my back. One doctor even told me he wanted to put me on a boat in the middle of Folsom Lake with a case of Avion water so that I would lose enough weight to make my back stop hurting. I was in a pain program through my medical program and released from the pain program being told I wasn't following their instructions and trying hard enough. After that, I was called a couple months later about an experimental procedure that they wanted to try on my back to see if it would help, but I needed a CT scan for that. I was called after the CT scan and told that all of the metal that had been implanted in my back in 1993 had broken and was moving through my spine. I wasn't lazy. There was a reason I wasn't feeling good. I actually had fun with that, telling people that I had screws loose. The day after I was released from disability, from my spine surgery to remove all that metal, day after I was released from disability, I got in a car accident again, not my fault, that totaled my car and resulted in my having a disc replacement surgery in my neck. It also led to a case of post-traumatic stress disorder where I was absolutely terrified to get in my car. I had to go to therapy for that. My poor husband is a truck driver. I was afraid for him to go to work. I made him call me every 5 minutes to tell me he was okay in his car, which he's a truck driver. He was on the phone all day telling me he was okay. And when I drove in the car with him, it was like riding a roller coaster because every time a car would come near us, I'd throw my hands up and scream. It was awful. So yes, I've had experience dealing with challenges. And as I said, I've had counseling. Not everything's happy when it happens. And it's not always funny. Many times they're horribly painful. But in looking back, you can choose to dwell on the negative and let things pile up until you can no longer handle a single thing, or you can take a look at the positive things and learn to laugh. I choose to get through it and then find a way to laugh about it. I truly believe that a positive attitude and a little laughter can get you through anything life hands you. Aside from that, medical science has proven that when you laugh, those real big belly laughs, endorphins are released. And those are the same chemicals that are released during really strenuous exercise. And they're really beneficial to your body. They relieve stress and anxiety and pain. And how many of you would rather exercise than laugh? Okay, I think laughter is a much better way to do that. So now that we've been through all the really heavy stuff, I want to show you some real life situations where I've used laughter to get through things that were tough. A little, on a much lighter note than what I've already shown you. So does that sound good to everybody? Okay. How many of you have ever lived with a teenage girl? As you know, they go through this phase where every time they come into the room, you wonder if their head's going to spin. Well, we went through that with my daughter. And when she finally got through that phase, she was 22 years old. And I decided it was time to celebrate. Her dream, her entire life, had been to go to a mud bath at Calistoga and visit the spas. So I decided, let's make that happen. We started doing our research. One of the first things we noticed as we researched it was that up in Calistoga, all the mud baths claim that their mud is clean. Now, as Christy and I started researching, we started wondering, why is this such a big selling point? They're reusing the mud. People are sitting in the mud. What are people doing in the mud that they need to advertise that it's so clean? And we decided we don't want to sit in mud that other people have already been in. So we chose a little bit different option. But when our weekend started, we got in the car, we drove up to Calistoga, we laughed, we sang, we were like a couple little schoolgirls in the car. It was just really fun. When we get there, we check in, and they took us into the room where we would have our spa treatment. Now, as we walked through the door, to the one side of us was about a 10-foot by 12-foot solid mirrored wall. In that wall were 2 shower spigots. Below the shower spigots were 2 lawn chairs like you would see in your yard, the little plastic chairs. About 4 feet in front of that were 2 bar stools. On the other side of the room were what I can only describe as large buffet serving trays. You know, like when you go to the buffet and you open the lid on the thing to get your food out? That's what it looked like, 2 enormous silver buffet tables across the room. This little attendant, who I'll call little Miss Teeny Weeny, she came in and she told us that we needed to choose the type of mud that we wanted. So she asked us what we wanted, and she described the different types. I chose the lavender mud because I wanted relaxation. My daughter chose the sea kelp mud because it had detoxifying properties, which led me to think, why does my daughter need to be detoxed? And before the gal left the room, she told us, take off all your clothes and put them in these little mesh bags that I'm giving you. And it was at that moment that Christy and I realized we haven't undressed in front of each other since she was a baby. This whole room has a whole wall of mirrors, and we're certainly not going to undress in front of Miss Teeny Weeny there. We don't know. So we did the best that we could. We took our clothes off, hiding behind a bar stool, between the bar stool and the plastic chair, trying not to look in the mirror, trying to keep our backs to each other. And when the attendant came back in the room, we squatted behind the bar stool so that she couldn't see us. And she put our bowls of mud on the stools in front of us. And she said, put the mud everywhere all over yourself, and then help each other get the spots that you can't reach. Okay. So she leaves, and Christy and I turn our backs to each other and start smearing on mud. Well, within a few seconds, Christy says, Mom, come here. So I back up to Christy, try not to look. What is it? She says, smell my mud. I smelled her mud. It smelled like dead fish. I'm a good mother. I looked at my daughter and I said, it's okay, honey. Think of how good you're going to feel at the end of this. Just put it on and don't worry about it. And in my head I was thinking, oh my God, it stinks. I got back over and I finished putting my mud on. And then the two of us backed up to each other, and imagine this, tried to put mud on each other without looking into all the places we couldn't reach. We then went to the buffet tables, opened the lid, and we were told to get in. Each of us into one of these steam tables. Our heads were close to each other. Miss Teeny Weeny comes in, puts more aromatherapy into the steam table, closes each of our lids, puts mud on each of our faces, a towel around our face, and says, leave this on for 10 or 15 minutes. And then you can take it off and relax. So she leaves and turns the steam tables on. 2 minutes into it, I had my thing off my face. It was so hot, I couldn't believe it. And I was trying just to breathe and not say anything to my daughter. But from right behind my head, I could hear Christy, Mom, I'm going to die. I can't take this, I'm going to die. No, I'm a good mom. So I said what any good mother would say to their daughter. I said, honey, it's okay. Just relax and breathe deep. You're going to make it. It's okay. Just remember, this is your dream weekend. This is what you've always wanted to do. It's okay. And in my head, I was thinking, I'm going to die too. And if we both die, will we get our money back? 40 minutes into this, Miss Teeny Weeny comes in, opens up the lids, and tells us we can get out. We're half dead. She goes across the room to that mirrored wall, turns on cold water showers, and tells us, come on over here and you can go ahead and get into the shower. When you're in a steam bath like that for so long, something happens to your body. Your muscles and your bones turn to jelly. We had to slither out of the metal thing, pull ourselves across the floor to get to that cold water to cool off. It was horrible. But we made it. We got over there and we rinsed off. Now, when you put the mud on yourself, one of the things that's a big benefit is you can put it where you want it and not put it where you don't want it. When you're in a steam table, though, the mud still goes where you don't want it. So it was quite challenging to not have any bones or muscles to work with and try to get the mud completely off. But we did manage. And they finally brought us out bathrobes and lemon water and got us cooled down and took us in for an hour-long massage, which was absolutely wonderful. And then into another room where we got to take a mint-flavored shower, mint-scented shower, which was really refreshing. And then we left. As we're walking down the street back to the car, I told Christy, this was wonderful. After all of this, we'll go any place you want in Napa for dinner. You pick any place. And in my head, I was thinking, I hope I don't go broke. If I don't go broke doing this. You know, she did. She looked at me and she said, I want macaroni and cheese. She wanted a comfort dinner, macaroni and cheese after going through that. But she did tell me, she said, I can still smell that smell. Can you smell it? And as a good mom, I looked at her and I said, oh no, honey, all I smell is mint. It must have gotten up in your sinuses or something. But then to myself, I thought, she smells like dead fish. We got in the car and I did treat her to the macaroni and cheese, and we laughed for hours about our experience. Now, while we were going through it, it wasn't so fun. It was not exactly what we had hoped for. But in the end, it turned out to be a lot of good laughs for both of us. Now, not every situation like this is going to be fun. Sometimes things are much more serious, but you can still find laughter in it.